What a rich storehouse of enjoyment has kindly nature endowed on those men whose hearts are able to enjoy. And what a variety in those enjoyments. Who can count the innumerable nuances that distinguish different individuals in the different stages in life? The indistinct memory of those of my childhood still makes me quiver. Shall I try to depict the enjoyment that is felt by the young man whose heart is beginning to burn with all the fires of passion? At that happy age when you are as yet unaware even of the name of self-interest, ambition, hatred, and all the shameful passions that degrade and torment mankind. During that age, which is, alas, all too brief, the sun shines with a splendor that you never again encounter later on in life. The air is purer. The fountains are more limpid and more fresh. Nature has an aura, and the woods have paths that you can't find once you have reached maturity. God, what perfumes those flowers emit! How delicious are those fruits! With what colors does dawn deck itself? All women are lovable and faithful. All men are kind, generous, and sensitive. Wherever you go, you meet with cordiality, openness, and selflessness. In the whole of nature, there is nothing but flowers, virtues, and pleasures. Do not the agitation of love and the hope of happiness flood our hearts with sensations as vivid as they are varied? The spectacle of nature, our ability to contemplate it both as a whole and in every detail, opens up an immense field of enjoyments for reason to explore. Soon the imagination, hovering over this ocean of pleasures, increases their quantity and their intensity. The different sensations unite and combine in order to form new ones. Dreams of glory mingle with the palpitations of love. Benevolence marches beside egotism, which offers its hand to it. Melancholy comes from time to time to cast its solemn dark veil over us. And change our tears into pleasure. Finally, the perceptions of the mind, the sensations of the heart, the very memories of the senses are inexhaustible sources of pleasure and happiness for man. So there is no cause for anyone to be surprised that the noise Jonetti made when he knocked the coffee pot against the fire dog and the unexpected sight of a cup of cream should have made such a vivid and agreeable impression on me. I immediately put on my traveling clothes, having examined them with a complacent eye, and it was then that I resolved to write an ad hoc chapter in which I would describe them to the reader. The shape and usefulness of these clothes are generally well enough known, so I'll discuss more particularly their influence on the spirit of travelers. My winter traveling outfit is made of the warmest and softest fabric it has been possible for me to find. It completely envelops me from head to foot, and when I'm in my armchair with my hands in my pockets and my head pulled down into the collar of my coat, I resemble the statue of Vishnu without feet and hands, which you can see in Indian pagodas. You may, if you wish, view the influence that I attribute to traveling clothes on the travelers who wear them as a mere prejudice. What I can say for certain in this respect is that it would appear to me just as ridiculous to take a single step of my journey around my room dressed in my uniform and with my sword at my side, as it would to go out into social circles in a dressing gown. When I see myself dressed in this way, according to the rigorous demands of pragmatics, not only would I not be capable of continuing on my journey, but I think that I wouldn't even be in a state to read what I have written hitherto, and even less to understand it. But does this surprise you? Don't we see every day people who think they are ill because they have long beards, or because someone takes it into his head to deem that they don't look very well and to tell them so? Clothes have such an influence on the minds of men that there are valetudinarians who feel much better when they see themselves in a new outfit and a powdered wig. You even find some who thus deceive the public and themselves by taking care over their outfits. They die one fine morning all rigged up, and their deaths cause quite a stir. Sometimes they forgot to give the Count of Blank several days' notice that he was to stand guard. A corporal would go to wake him up nice and early the very same day he was due to do so, and to give him this sad piece of news. But the idea of getting up straight away, putting on his gaiters, and going out without having given it a moment's thought the day before disturbed him so greatly that he preferred to have it announced that he was ill and to stay at home. So he would put on his dressing gown and send his wig maker away. This gave him a pale, sickly appearance that alarmed his wife and his entire family. He really found that he looked a bit off color on days like that. He'd tell everyone that this was the case, partly to keep up the pretense, partly too because he actually thought it was so. Imperceptibly, the influence of the dressing gown would do its work. The broth he had eaten, willingly or not, made him feel nauseous. Soon his friends and relatives were sending for news of him. This was more than enough to send him to bed without further ado. In the evening, Dr. Ranson found that his pulse was accelerated and ordered him to be bled the next day. If the period of his guard duty had gone on a month more, the patient would have succumbed. Who could doubt the influence of traveling clothes on travelers when you reflect that the poor Count of Blank thought more than once that he was about to take a journey into the next world as a result of having put his dressing gown? Who could doubt the influence of traveling clothes on travelers when you reflect that the poor Count of Blank thought more than once that he was about to take a journey into the next world as a result of having put his dressing gown for no good reason in this one? I was sitting by my fire after dinner, all wrapped up in my traveling clothes and yielding quite willingly to its influence as I awaited the time to set off, when the vapors of digestion rising to my brain so obstructed the passages by which ideas made their way there from my senses that all communication found itself intercepted, and just as my senses were no longer transmitting any ideas to my brain, the latter in its turn could no longer send out the electrical fluid that animates them, the fluid with which the ingenious Dr. Valley resuscitates dead frogs. You will easily be able to imagine after reading this preamble why my head fell onto my chest, and how the muscles of the thumb and index finger of my right hand, no longer stimulated by this fluid, relaxed to the point where a volume of the works of Marquise Caraccioli that I had been holding tightly between those two fingers fell from my grasp without my noticing and slid onto the hearth. I had just been receiving visitors, and my conversations with the people who had just left had centered on the death of the famous Dr. Signa, who had just passed away and whose death was universally regretted. He was lively, hard-working, a good physician, and a famous botanist. The merits of this skillful man were occupying my thoughts, and yet I told myself if it were possible for me to mention the souls of all those he may have helped over into the other world, who knows if his reputation might not suffer a bit of a setback? I was imperceptibly starting to formulate a dissertation on medicine and the progress it has made since Hippocrates. I was wondering if the famous personages of history who died in their beds, such as Pericles, Plato, the celebrated Aspasia, and Hippocrates himself, had died just like ordinary people of some putrid, inflammatory, or verminous fever, and whether they had been bled and stuffed full of medicines. But to say just why I thought of these four personages rather than of others would be quite impossible. Who can explain a dream? All that I can say is that it was my soul that mentioned the Doctor of Kos, the Doctor of Turin, and the famous statesman who performed such fine deeds and such great misdeeds. But as for his elegant lady friend, I humbly confess that it was the other who pointed to her. However, when I think of it, I might be tempted to feel just a twinge of pride. It is clear, after all, that in this dream the balance in favor of reason was 4-1. This is a lot for a soldier of my age. Be that as it may, while I was indulging in these reflections, my eyes finally closed and I fell into a deep sleep. But as I closed my eyes, the image of the characters I had been thinking of remained painted on that fine canvas known as our memory. And as those images mingled in my mind with the idea of summoning up the dead, I soon saw, arriving one after the other, Hippocrates, Plato, Pericles, Aspasia, and Dr. Signa, with his wig.